thank you to Students for Free Tibet and the Tibet Action Institute and all our friends in the Tibetan community for including us today in this very special event. As we remember and honor the life of Tenzin Delek Rinpoche today, we are all witnessing the power of his spirit, one that cannot die. And we carry the awesome responsibility for continuing his life's work on behalf of all the Tibetan people, and really to press for dignity for all people, and for protecting our, thank you, and for protecting our human home and this fragile planet. I want to say to Tenzin Delek Rinpoche's family that we convey deep sympathy, respect, and deep regret that we could not do more to free him. In 2003, when China was awarded the 2008 Olympics, HRIC launched a 5-year campaign to try to raise international awareness and attention. And part of that campaign was to focus on 12 activists from different communities, including Tenzin Delek Rinpoche. Like Tenzin Delek Rinpoche, the other 11, the journalists, the defenders, the cultural workers, and activists, including Han Chinese, Mongolian cultural worker Hada, the Uyghur writer Tazin, who wrote the story about a wild pigeon who chose suicide rather than live a lifelong in a cage. And that story triggered his imprisonment. All of them lost their freedom, their lives, and suffered unimaginable travesties for simply trying to speak the truth, for asserting rights, for defending the survival of their communities, for trying to preserve and hold on to their language, their culture, their beliefs. But even for those released, they were simply released to the larger prison that is China. And now we face the challenges of China hosting yet another Olympics, despite its abysmal human rights record and despite the serious impacts on the environment, especially the severe water crisis. And yet, I am sure that SFT and the Tibet Action Institute, supported by our technology friends, will inevitably come up with creative, courageous, and effective actions. So I want to say something about hope as we remember the life of Tenzin Delek Rinpoche. Today, China's leaders are attempting to maintain their control through strategies that are doomed to fail in the long run. And perhaps with collective prayer and action, we can make that long run a shorter long run. These strategies include enforcing amnesia on the people. Amnesia about lives lost in prisons, villages, and cities all throughout China, and in haunted public places, temples, Tiananmen Square. These include censoring the truth about the terrible human and environmental price being paid for China's failed development policies. These strategies include military violence and threats, systematic abuse of law and vicious propaganda. Propaganda where state terrorists label His Holiness the Dalai Lama a terrorist, and where official thugs label Chinese human rights lawyers and defenders rounded up in July a criminal syndicate. And finally, this regime is deploying the most sophisticated technology that power and money can buy. But this legal, military, and propaganda approach reveals not only power. If we look deeper behind these tactics of control, we see a vulnerable regime. Xi Jinping's regime is a vulnerable regime. Xi Jinping is now negotiating the internal party power conflicts that has deepened by his corruption campaign. When you target tigers and flies, he now has many tiger enemies and a swarm of flies. He faces an economic crisis that threatens the legitimacy and survival of the party, and they know it. And that's why they're rushing to intervene in the free market because of the collapsing of the stock market. So we need to strategically leverage the opportunities created by a regime, a vulnerable regime that fears the people it is trying to rule, even fearing them in death, including the ashes of one courageous soul like Tenzin Delek Rinpoche. This is the moment for the international community to speak up publicly. And Laden's right, not privately, because everyone's so afraid of the power of China. And they have to realize now that they must speak up. And the leaders listening from China are not as powerful as they seem. They are vulnerable now. So today, we remember these lives lost, the final price paid, and we stand in solidarity with Tenzin Delek Rinpoche's family and with the whole Tibetan community, and we remember them through our words, prayers, and poetry, and the beautiful music and song. And we honor Tenzin Delek's spirit. His spirit is finally free and at peace, not tied by the past, the present, or the future. But for those of us who remain here, our task is to carry on with courage and renewed commitment. More importantly, we need to carry on with hope in our hearts, fueling our actions, with love and hope in our hearts, fueling our actions. Because hope is what will keep our spirits alive. Hope is what will sustain our communities in these dark times. Hope is what will carry us forward towards a future for the Tibetan people, for all people, a future that honors all life. The Communist Party cannot kill hope. So, Semsin Shuk Macha, 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 Semsin Shuk Macha. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Sharon. And